Switch off your phones, right? Am I audible in the back? Yeah? Cool? To the end? Sorry? Louder? Better now? Perfect, perfect, okay. We can, better? Yeah? Perfect, perfect, okay. Not sure. The audio man is missing, but we'll get started. Mr. Raghunandan is timing me, so. Okay, so 2 years ago, on May 2023, in the month of May 2023, the new assembly was elected, and they took oath, I think around the 20th of May, right? So prior to that, of course, there was the election, and this was the manifesto that the Congress party had presented, right? And we also did an iteration of the government report card last year, right? And we found that the government had fulfilled 3% of the promises, right? We had analyzed only 59 promises, to be fair, right? We only looked at key sectors like education, health, employment, industry, and based on 59 odd promises we had reviewed, we found that the party had fulfilled only 3%, but this was last year, right? So this year, we decided to do a better job of it. So we looked at 134 promises across 8 key sectors, right? That includes health, education, environment, urban development, Bengaluru, workers. So those are more or less the list of sectors we took on, right? And what we found after a very reasonable process, so what we did is we took a two-pronged approach. We filed RTIs for each promise, right? We filed RTIs with the department to see whether what is the status of that promise, has any money been given for that promise, have any rules been formed, has any policy been implemented, and so on and so on. We also looked at news sources. So we looked at the Hindu, the Times of India, the Indian Express to see if any news is available about that promise, right? And then we brought both these things together. And we said, okay, so based on the RTIs and based on what's available in the news, this promise is either fulfilled or it's work in progress or it's not started or it's failed, right? So what did we find this year, right? So what we found is the government has fulfilled 6.7% of its promises, right? 6.7% in 2 years, right? So that's a total of 9 promises that they've fulfilled out of 134. We also find that they haven't started any work on about 50% promises, which is huge, right? And if we leave out the 5 guarantees, right, which we also analyzed as part of this analysis, they fulfilled 3% of the promises, right? Leaving out the guarantees, just looking at education, health, urban development, Bangalore, and some of those key sectors, right? So this is a broad summary of where the Congress party is with respect to fulfilling its manifesto promises, right? 6.7 with the guarantees and 3% if you leave the guarantees out, right? Now, what are these important promises that they fulfilled, right? So let's maybe start there, right? So we of course know about the 5 guarantees, right? Anna Bhagya, Gruha Jyoti, Gruha Lakshmi, right? And then you have 2 more, Yuva Nidhi, right? And finally Shakti, right? Thank you so much. So those are the 5 promises that we know that they fulfilled, and kudos to them. But here are the other 4 that we don't talk about so much, right? That we found in analysis that the party has fulfilled to its credit. So one is they've revised textbooks, right, as they promised in the manifesto. Have they really stuck to those values? We haven't gone into that, but we at least know that they've revised textbooks, right, after they've come into power. They also wanted to enact a comprehensive legislation for the management of BBMP. They wanted to bring in all parastatals into one body, which is effectively the GBGA, right, which was passed very recently. So that's another promise that they fulfilled. Then a very commendable one is to install public charging and battery swapping points at every metro station and bus stands, right? So this is something that they fulfilled. We found RTI replies where they showed us the list of metro stations and bus stands where they've set up battery swapping and public charging. And finally, they promised to set up welfare boards for auto drivers and taxi drivers, right? While they promised to set it up specifically for auto drivers and taxi drivers separately, what the government has done is they've, they've come out with a motor transport Workers Welfare Act, which effectively covers both auto drivers and taxi drivers, right? So these are the 4 promises that the government has fulfilled, right? Now, there are a lot of other promises as well. So what are the ones, so what is the status of those, right? So if you look at urban development, health, and governance, they've not made a lot of progress actually, right? So as far as urban development is concerned, 70% promises, they haven't started at all, right? So that's huge, and that shows that the government probably needs to pay attention to things like urban governance, health, right? And then governance as well. So I think governance and health is something that the government needs to focus on. In terms of being in progress, 50% of the promises with respect to, I think this is agriculture, are in progress, and 41% of the promises made for Bengaluru are in progress, right? Now there are 2 promises that the government has failed on, right? And when do we say they are failed? They are failed when they've set a time limit and then they fail to implement it within that time limit, right? So the 2 promises are, 1, to get all pending metro projects completed within 1 year, right? So they actually promised that they'll complete phase 2, phase 2A, and phase 2B within 1 year of coming to power, right? So 1 year was obviously a very steep challenge, and they unfortunately failed to meet that promise, right? The second one was to fill up all vacancies of teachers and staff in government and aided colleges within 1 year, right? So now it's 2 years, and hence the government has failed to live up to these 2 promises, right? So that's briefly on the promises, right? And I hope everybody is able to see the report cards on their phone. Have you all accessed it? Has everybody seen the report card on the phone? There's a lot of disturbance there. I hope everybody is settling down. All good? All good. Perfect. Okay. So now I'll quickly head into the 5 guarantees, right? So we've analyzed the 5 guarantees in 3 ways, right? One is, what is the objective of these guarantees, right? What do they want to achieve? Number 2, what are the challenges and implementation of these guarantees, right? And number 3, what do we at CIVIC think about these guarantees, right? So I'll quickly run through these in the interest of time. Right. So starting off with Annabhagya, right? So the government has a body called the Fiscal Policy Institute, right? And they commissioned a survey. I think it was last year or this year, I'm not sure, but the survey results came out, right? It was conducted by a very reputable organization called CSDS. It's based in Delhi. So they did a survey to understand what the people are thinking about the 5 guarantees, right? And we've primarily relied on that information as part of this analysis. So quickly, 88% people perceive that they're getting more calories now, right? That means they're either getting more meals or the number of meals is same, but the quantity is more. So 88% of the people who responded to this survey, who are mostly poorer families or families with BPL or APL cards, right? 88% of them feel that they're getting more food now. So that's great, okay? And this is on the numbers, right? Beneficiaries, so 4 crore BPL beneficiaries and 35 Antodaya Anna Yojana beneficiaries, right? So 4.5-ish, right? Now, what are the challenges with the Annabhagya scheme, right? One good move that the government is trying to do is remove bogus beneficiaries, because bogus beneficiaries means money is lost, right? Food is siphoned off to people who don't deserve these, this scheme, right? But while it's well-intentioned, there are problems, right? So one of the problems is there are outdated income ceilings and cumulative incomes, right? For example, say if you have 2 kids or 3 kids, their income is also used to calculate whether a person is a eligible beneficiary, right? So there are challenges like these, which is why eligible people are missing out on this scheme, right? What we also appreciate is the government has now set out to start an Indira food kit, right? And a picture of Indira Gandhi, just to remember. But yeah, so the Indira food kit now brings in tur dal, moong dal, sugar, salt, and cooking oil. They plan to replace rice. They plan to replace 5 kgs of rice with this Indira food kit, right? And we think that's a good move, because that increases or brings in some more nutrition, right? Diversifies the kind of food that people are having. So in short, we think that's a good move to go forward with, right? So that's about Annabhagya, right? Overall, people are having more food, which is great, and the Indira food kit will increase the nutrition, right? Quickly to Gru Lakshmi. So what does Gru Lakshmi do? Gru Lakshmi ensures 2,000 rupees per month to the head of the household if she's a woman, right? So if the woman is registered at the head as a head of the household, she gets 2,000 rupees, right? So this move is aimed at empowering women, right, by providing them financial assistance, right? Now, what does the survey tell us, right? What does data tell us? The survey tells us that 88% respondents perceive that Gru Lakshmi has improved their decision making, right, inside the family, which is great, right? And it also tells us that 95% people perceived some sort of financial upliftment, right? Which is again a great finding, right? And not surprising either, right? If you're getting 2,000 rupees, your life is getting better, right? So how are they using this 2,000 rupees that they're getting every month?